So this one is Molino di Grace, 2011, Gran Selezione. This is an interesting topic in itself because Gran Selezione has become legal in 2014 after 20 years discussion and talking about this. At first, there was quite a bit of resistance from some producers who either wanted the grand selection, so the best selection, if you like, or a bit like a Grand Vin, to be a bit more fundamental or focus on having the identity of the place, Rada, Greve, Gaole. But now I'm quite pleased to say when I talk to a lot of the producers, even those who were initially against the idea seem to be pretty positive towards it. As they said, one of them said to me, well, I play rugby, so if my captain says we go here, then we go here. So in other words, there's a bit more support for it. But this particular winery have always been in favor of this Gran Selezione because they were already doing something like that. So it's a step above the Riserva, or that's the intention. You've got the Chianti Classico, the Chianti Classico Riserva, and the Gran Selezione. It has to be made from grapes from the estate, so the grapes cannot be bought in, but it can be selections. It's not a single vineyard wine. It's a sort of top cuvée, or as I said, Grand Vin. And it's a way for Chianti to kind of establish itself much more in the framework for some of these great wines, because to some extent it's been, Chianti Classico I should say, to some extent it's been in the shadow of some of its more illustrious neighbours. Brunello is always getting a lot of attention. And really some of their top wines are supremely good and do deserve this recognition. So this one has a beautiful name. In English, it's a very pretty name, Molino of Grace. So the windmill or the mill of Grace. Grace is the family name of the American owners, but in our case, it's got that double meaning of elegance, grace, etc. And this is from Panzano, hill in the middle of the area, 220 to 350 meters. About 18,000 bottles, not necessarily of this wine. How many bottles of this wine is made typically? About 18,000, more or less. 2011 was particularly hot vintage. It's a vintage I often like in parts of Italy. It has a sort of ripeness, a charm, and an immediate appeal. I did like it, for example, in Piemonte. So again, this is a really intriguing wine, and have a look at it, taste it.
I need to tell one story about this wine because I was twice in Molino di Grace. One was 2012 and the second in 2014. And 2014, Jacopo, that was your first year when you start working for a winery, if I remember correctly. That was the first time, yes, first year. And 2011, that is the second vintage of Gran Selezione, but when I came to the winery, that was 2014 vintage. Jacopo gave me for tasting 2010. I was not so optimistic about that. I said, okay, it's really good wine, but I personally prefer to have Riserva and Margone, and we finish the tasting. And after that, next day after, I tried to leave the winery, and Jacopo stopped me and say, come on, Camille, you need to taste one more wine because, we have something really interesting for you. And that was the same bottle which was open last day, and that was the same bottle of Gran Selezione 2010, and I say, come on, I don't know what wine is it, but really amazing. And say, that was the same bottle which I opened you yesterday. That's why, about the food pairing, that's why I chose yesterday for roast beef and confit potato, deep red wine sauce. Of course, the combination was really good because the sauce was very rustic and the wine is aged as well. But of course, the memory is very important when you drink a wine. So, salute.
What I love about this wine is the evolution of the winery, because I have known Il Molino di Grace for over a decade, and we meet today and we taste these great wines, and I hope you appreciate the selection. I'm loving some of the wines that we are tasting. But I think the timeline is also important, because I'm meeting many of you for the 10th time, the 20th time, and each year there are new stories, there's a higher quality across the board, and for me, Il Molino is an example of this, because I remember the beginnings of this estate. It was very interesting wine, very high quality, but I think this 2011 is probably the best Gran Selezione that I have tasted. So it's great that each winery is still busy looking for ways to improve the quality, because this is very important in the wine business. We should never stop. There is always a next vintage. There is always a new challenge. The market is going on, and we need to adapt. We need to react. And I'm really super happy when I see, when I taste a wine that I know really well in a new vintage, and I think, wow, this is on a level that I've never seen it. So for me, Margone 11, great stuff, and it's also a great ager. We have magnums of 05. Still aging in the cellar.